workshops or training for your team, feel free to reach out to me. And your mic is going to be muted just so that we can manage the noise, but feel welcome to send your thoughts, comments, and insights directly to the chat. And let's make this lively. So we want you to just completely blow up the chat. Okay. So today is made possible through generous investments of our visionary sponsors, and we thank you for your partnership and commitment to excellence in leadership. And we encourage you to connect with us on social media via our varied social handles up there on the screen. And we always have wonderful news to share on our platform, so that is a way you can stay connected with us and stay inspired long after today's workshop. Now, I'd like to introduce our speaker today. I'm very excited. I'm thrilled to introduce today's speaker, who's a friend, colleague, and fellow Edgewalker. Anne Berry Jolles is a renowned life coach of 20 years, solopreneur, CEO, TEDx speaker, and international award-winning author whose work has been seen in Good Housekeeping. She partners with individuals, communities, organizations, and Fortune 500 companies alike. She is here to talk about one of my favorite topics, the Grace Trail. And I believe it's a trail that changes lives. So get ready to have a wonderful, wonderful conversation today with Anne Jolles. Welcome, Anne Jolles. Let's give her a nice jazz hands. Welcome. Woo!
Yeah. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
Yes, and so we are going to now do something sharing screen, right, gang?
Yeah.
Do I hit share screen or what? Yes, you're shaking. Here we go. I'm doing jazz hands. Is it working?
It's working. It's working.
No, I'm doing jazz feet also. Hello, everyone. Thank you. A big hug to Karen, my friend, and thank you to leadership at Greater Hartford. We've been on for a half hour. We had a few technical problems, but this is a resiliency model that I am presenting. And they held their cool. They walked me through it. Things disappeared, you know, just like life, right? It was just like life. But I had this wonderful leadership team just hold the calmness with courage and walk me back. And now I can actually share my slides. Thank you, everybody. All right, we're going, it's not advancing. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we are here today. We have leaders who have all different styles, and we are here to answer the question, how can we increase our capability and our capacity to live, to lead, to work under increasing uncertainty? Everyone on this phone call can relate to that. I know that. Some of you are home, some of you in your office, some of you probably in your car. Things are very different. And so that's the question that we're here to answer today. And I'm here hopefully to provide a tool for you to help you with that. And because leadership, first of all, starts with us. We have to be leaders in our own life. So as we're leaders in our own life, we can go into our workplace, into our community, our organizations, and lead others. But it really begins with us. And so I have a question for all of you leaders. Who's showing up in your life as these sands are shifting under your feet and under everyone's feet around you? No one is immune. This is a great equalizer. We're all unsure of the future. So who's showing up in your life during these challenging times? How is the shifting sand affecting you at home and in your work? And are you able to stand up and lead with calmness and with courage? Because that's what is required in the current environment. I have two stories for you, really current stories that I think apply. I have a daughter out in Portland, Oregon. She's in an accelerated nursing program. And she happens to be taking a leadership course right now. And so here, just picture someone you know and love out there, moved out to Portland. She lives alone in an apartment with her dog. The pandemic strikes, protests, they have riots out there, and now she's virtual learning. She's totally alone, and she's in a leadership course. And she contacted her leadership professor and said, my grandmother's ill, she's in hospice, and she explained her whole situation. She can't come home. And she said, could I have a little extension on the project? And so anyway, my daughter handed her project in. She got a 96, and she had 10 points taken off for being 6 hours late. There was no cutting her any slack during a pandemic. There was nothing. And this is the same leadership professor who 3 times has not been able to get their grades back because she's overwhelmed. And no apologies, nothing. Is she a leader in her own life? Is she practicing what she's there to teach? I just, it's so ironic. And my son is out in Arizona. He's on a wildfire. He's a wildfire fighter. And he's also a veteran, and he's in a period of post-traumatic growth. And someone said to him, is this like Afghanistan, fighting these fires? He said, no, it's not exactly like Afghanistan because there's no one shooting at me. And I tell you that story because all that we're dealing with, but his reality is, well, at least it's not as bad because nobody's shooting at us. And I'm sure there are people in the room who feel like people are shooting at you, you know, and I just think those are just great, timely stories for us to start this conversation, because the sands are shifting for all of us. And again, who's showing up? Who are you? How are you showing up in the shifting sands for yourself, for your family, and for the people that you lead? That's me and my dog Willie, and I'm glad no one ever told Willie he's too small to do that, because he never self-doubts at all. So today I'm going to share a 5-step resiliency model so that you can personally find your footing in the shifting sands and show up calmly and courageously. This model is intended to help you navigate the uncertainty with curiosity and with questions, because questions bring us beyond what we already know. And we don't even know where this new frontier is leading us. We need questions, because the old stuff we knew it can't work, because it's all different. And it also will give you great words and questions and a new language to enter conversations of courage that will help to revitalize your workplace, revitalize your home, and embolden you to enter courageous conversations, difficult conversations, so that you can get fresh perspectives, and that you have a shared language to bring to your shared endeavors at work. The questions I'm going to share with you can either make or unmake your day. These questions have no right going unasked. And their answers to these questions are just waiting for you to arrive. These questions are going to ask you to stop being, stop doing, and start being in your life. So with that said, I'd like to tell you how this all began. In the year 2000, I found myself in my kitchen in a state of despair. Many things had happened in my life that really, I lost my footing. And you can hear more about it. I have a TEDx talk, and it's entitled Cracking the Grace Code. If you want to hear the whole story, it's an amazing story. But during that time, I said to myself, I need to step into a state of grace. I didn't even really know what I meant by that, but I knew where I was horrible. I was trying to find the calm within the storm that I felt was just right over there, but I just couldn't get there. So later on that day, so I said a state of grace. Later on that day, I saw 5 words within the word grace. And those 5 words are gratitude, release, accept, challenge, and embrace. This is the foundation of the Grace Trail. I started later on after that asking the 5 questions that naturally flow from these 5 words. And those questions would be, even though life is difficult, what can you be grateful for? Release would be, what do I need to release to move forward in my life? Acceptance, what's calling out for acceptance? C is for challenge. How would I like to challenge myself to move in the direction of my choice? And E is embrace, for embrace the possibilities. What can I embrace as possible in my precious life and in my precious work? I gave you a handout. I don't know, Karen, if the handout went out to everyone or if they have to request it, but you can, I shared a handout with the team, and they'll be sharing it with you. But basically, this is what the handout looks like. It's the 5 questions, so that you'll actually, if you want to print it out, you'll actually have this tool when you're off this call. Karen, how do they get that handout?
It's in the chat box, so folks can download it.
Okay.
So yes, it's available.
Okay, great. So you have it, so you don't have to take notes if you don't want to, because you'll have it later. So in 2012, when my son Rob was in Afghanistan, well, first of all, I started using these 5 questions in my life coaching practice, and people really liked it. I just called it the grace process. It wasn't until 2012, when my son Rob was in combat in Afghanistan, that I lost my footing again. I read an article about the Appalachian Mountain Trail, and the question was asked, who's hiking the trail? And the answer was, it's a whole lot of veterans walking off their war. Don't you love that? Walking off their war. And I said, wow, where do I go to walk off my war? That was when I decided to make a trail in Plymouth, Massachusetts, my hometown, so that I could help alleviate my anxiety, and I could help, hopefully share and help others cope. This is the trail in Plymouth. You certainly can, if you're interested, you can get a copy off of my website, gracetrail.com. But basically, I went out to the beach. I picked up a big boulder and I wrote gratitude. What are you grateful for? And I plopped it down on the trail, and I did that for each of the words and each of the questions. A mile-long loop on Plymouth Harbor. And Karen, you've got to get up to Plymouth and walk it with me one of these days. And you're all invited. It's a public trail. And I put those down, the rocks down, and I put up maps on each end of the trail. And I thought for sure I'd get a cease and desist, because I don't own the land. I never got a cease and desist from Plymouth. All I've gotten from Plymouth is amazing embrace of grace. When the highwaymen come to, or the highway people come to mow the lawn, they move the rocks and then they put them all back. I've been in every magazine, newspapers, awards, and it's now a destination. People come from very far to walk the Grace Trail. They've read my book and whatever, they've heard about me from somehow, and they come here to walk the Grace Trail. I hope we have a Grace Trail at Hartford someday. So, so we've got our trail now in Plymouth, and it has evolved from a trail to a resiliency model where you don't need a trail. You just have to ask the 5 Grace Trail questions. So we are going to, so our purpose today is for all of us to ask the question and hopefully find the answers today in this very short time we have. This is the question we're going to answer. How do we invite in hope, resiliency, and grace into our life and into our work? How can you, after this call, use Grace Trail to help you make some tough decisions? Because I know you all have a very, very challenging positions. How can you become more resilient? How can you find your footing and then help others that you work with to find theirs with the shifting sand?
Let's fill up the chat box with that question.
And how can you engage in a conversation of hope and possibility, both at home and at work? Our objectives, I want you to learn the 5 steps of the Grace Trail. I want you to add tools to your resiliency and leadership portfolio. And I want you curious to learn more. These are the 5 words and questions. And we're going to go over each of those now. But first of all, I want to tell you what is Grace Trail. So how are we doing for time? Okay. Grace Trail is, like I said, it's a simple 5-step resiliency model. It begins with gratitude and ends with hope. You don't need a trail. People are walking it and talking it all over the world. They are taking this concept and they are shaping it to fit their culture, their language, their values, their community, their organizations. You walk it by asking and answering the 5 Grace Trail questions. Let me talk a little bit about what is grace, because grace has religious connotations, but Grace Trail is a practical application and a practical tool for you to use throughout your life. For me, my definition of grace is that grace is a gift. It's from the universe, God, source, higher power, guides, or whatever concept you use to make sense of your world. This is a really interesting story of grace. Karen mentioned that I was in Good Housekeeping. So I was in a June issue, maybe 2 years ago, just 2 years ago. And my best friend and my brother had passed away 6 months previous to this. He never got to see me in Good Housekeeping. It was very disappointing. And his daughter, Liz, was the executor of his estate. And she called me one day. She said, "You're never gonna believe this one." She said, "I just got a letter from Good Housekeeping," because she got all of my brother's mail 6 months after he passed away. She was still getting mail. And I'm telling this story for the people who are like, yeah, what is grace, right? So she gets a letter addressed to my brother, Richard Barry, and it is, soliciting him to subscribe to Good Housekeeping. Now, he's not a logical person. If it was a sailing magazine, golfing, hiking, outdoorsman, those are the magazines. He got Good Housekeeping. He got one issue. He got the issue that I was in, mailed to my niece's house. How does that happen? That is pretty crazy. To me, that was my brother saying, "You go, girl. You got this, and I'm proud of you." To me, that's an amazing gift, an amazing story of grace. How are we doing, Karen, with questions? Is there anything? You can make this a conversation. You can interrupt me. How am I doing?
Going, and then as we step through each one of the questions,
Okay.
steps of the Grace Trail, we'll open it up each time for questions.
Perfect. So grace has no race, religion, gender, or age limit. Anyone can receive it if they're open to the possibility of grace showing up in their life. You can walk towards grace, inviting it in by living your life with curiosity, compassion, and courage. They all invite in grace. The more I learn about grace, the less I know. And that's the mystery, and that's the beauty of grace. This is our first step on the Grace Trail. Gratitude. Gratitude shines light into dark places, craving sunlight, so your life and your work can bloom. If you were on the Grace Trail in Plymouth today, this is actually what you'd see. A big rock with gratitude, what are you grateful for? And I've added smaller rocks. And there's all stories about the rocks. The rocks come and go, they walk, they come back. It's very funny. You'll see some painted rocks. I don't paint rocks. People now add to the Grace Trail. I find letters, presents, memorials. This trail has a life of its own, and it has many stewards, people who take care of the Grace Trail. It's amazing. But for those of you to translate into this workplace, I'd like to read this quote. Gratitude drives happiness. Happiness boosts productivity. Productivity reveals mastery. and mastery inspires the world. But it all begins with gratitude. And that's a quote from Robin Sharma. There is research from the Positive Psychology Foundation, and that says basically that managers who express gratitude and actually have gratitude practices with their employees and with their teams, generate 50% higher productivity within the workplace. That's something to pay attention to. And this is the question. This is how you walk the grace trail. You stop, you ask, what am I grateful for? And listen for the answer. Why don't we just take 30 seconds right now and do that? Just stop, ask yourself, what am I grateful for? And what do you hear?
And feel free to put your answers in the chat.
Absolutely.
What are you grateful for?
What are you grateful for? Anything coming in, Karen? You want to add some? You want to tell me what's happening?
Yes. So teamwork, team at work, hope, family, lots of family, health, kids, and a job they can do from home, flexibility, sunshine.
Mm.
Oh, I love this one, retirement. The roof over my head. Oh my God, Ted Carroll. Health, LGH, and air conditioning. I so agree with air conditioning. And more time with my kids.
Yeah.
And I love what Melissa said. Melissa said dance.
Go, Melissa. Yes.
Love, life, kindness. Lots of good answers, Anne.
Great. It's really very interesting, first of all, that everyone appreciates their family, even though they've been quarantined with them for so long. That's a really good thing. And I love the whole thing about dance, because when you can identify what brings you joy in life and gives you more positive energy and do more of that, you'll be more grateful. So there was a lot of richness there. I wish we had a whole hour just to talk about that, but thank you everyone for sharing. Now we're going to go R for release. Release lightens your load, allowing you to focus on what's in your control and make room for what you desire. Think of that. We have had to let go of and release so much during this pandemic in this whole new working environment. What if you started saying to yourself, where is the opportunity here in all of this change? What is the opportunity here in my business? What's the opportunity here for me as a leader? Because we've had to let go of a lot of things. We have lightened our load, whether we like it or not. It's gotten very different. Now, focus on what is in your control, because with release, there are 2 questions. What's the next time you have a struggle or adversity? Ask these 2 questions. Number 1, what's in your control? Number 2, what's out of your control? The quicker you can focus on what's in your control and get busy there, the more productive and more successful you'll be in life. That's the hallmark of a resilient person. Amidst the insanity, amidst the changing sands, able to focus on and delineate what's in your control, what's out of your control, and get working on what's in your control as quickly as possible. If you were on the Grace Trail in Plymouth today, this is what you'd see. Again, I don't paint those beautiful stones. People leave beautiful stones for other people to take. What do I need to release to move forward in my life?
Let's give everyone a second to put in the chat room.
Okay.
What is it that they need to release? So when you're considering the stress of this new now, what are you holding on that you would love to be able to release? What are you holding on that's maybe not even yours to hold?
That's a great question.
Fear and anxiety, I'm seeing. Trying to be perfect, perfectionism. I love that.
Love it.
That I can do it all. Fear of the unknown. I'm seeing constant worry. Homeschooling. things I can't control. And a lot of comments about fear, and there's some comments even about guilt in this space, because there's a lot of turmoil going on in the items that you mentioned at the very beginning of this call. You know, whether it's COVID, racial justice, you know, impact on family. There's a lot going on in our country. The political divide, anger. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I have to say that I've been in that space, that angry space. I've woken up in the morning angry, already angry, ready to start my day that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when we go back into the building, what will it look like? You know, I think our whole world has been turned upside down. But yeah, thank you. Those are some of the messages in the chat box.
And what I would say to all of you is, first of all, it's amazing with all the answers, how the answers end up being all of our answers. You know, we're sitting here sort of in our own little corners of the world, and it's really one voice. We are one. You know, when you hear what everyone's grateful for, it's like, yeah, oh yeah, me too. And then release. It's like, oh my gosh, yes, yes. That's what I need to release. And again, we need to, first of all, you have to feel it to heal it. So Karen wakes up angry. You have to feel those emotions. You know, I lost my mother-in-law last week. And when the tears come, I'm like, thank you. Thank you. Help me to release, make room for what's next. And as soon as you can do all that, you start to once again focus on what's in your control, because that's where the power is. But you definitely have to feel it to heal it. So we can't constantly be shoving those feelings out. But it's very interesting, if the feelings, what's not in our control actually is going to fall to our next step of acceptance. So very interesting. Okay, this is a metaphor, seasonal metaphor, that autumn leaves when they release and they make room for new growth. So if we can start to frame what's going on with the season of autumn, when the leaves have to fall to get ready for the spring growth. If we can frame what's going on now is, what are we letting go of and releasing, even though a lot of it we don't want to, but there will be new growth. And again, we've done this. Karen already took the answers to this, but the way you walk the grace trails, you just stop and ask, what do I need to release to move in the direction of my choice? You can do this at your desk and not tell anyone you're walking the grace trail. You can do this in a team meeting. Yeah, there's so many ways to walk it. And this is a cartoon, and it is a food processor, and it looks like 3 cucumbers sitting on top of it, and one cucumber looks at the other and he says, hey guys, I think this is one of those let it go moments in life when you have to relax and just trust the processor. And it brings us to acceptance. Again, if we ask those 2 lovely questions, what's in my control? Focus on it. What's out of my control? What's out of your control falls down to this next beautiful letter on the grace trail, and that's acceptance. Because acceptance allows you to stop fighting battles you cannot win. Acceptance is full of action. Really full acceptance breeds choices. It's not about submitting. It's not about becoming a victim. There's plenty of action in the step of acceptance. If you were on the Grace Trail today, this is the Acceptance Lookout. It's quite a beautiful place, and you can see the grass is worn down. Find people praying, crying, talking, hugging at Acceptance Lookout. And again, the question, stop, ask, what is calling out for acceptance in my life? I don't know if anything's coming into you, Karen. I'd love to hear a few of them.
Let's just give everyone a minute, because I think this is a big question. So
All
what
right.
is?
So let me tell you, Karen, let me dive into that a little bit. If you can't accept something, can you at least acknowledge it? We spend so much of our time avoiding the painful things, avoiding the difficult conversations. What if instead of saying you have to accept it, you said, what if I just looked at it and I could sit with it a while and just acknowledge it? Because it takes time to accept. I am so far away from accepting that my mother-in-law passed away last week. I'm probably years away. It's enough for me just to acknowledge it right now, even without tears. This is pretty good, guys. Can you just sit with it? So the first step of accepting is to just acknowledge it, because it's a wide spectrum from denial to acknowledgement. You move along to acceptance. Sometimes you never accept. Sometimes it never comes. But that's where the serenity is. Three questions. Okay,
yeah,
what do you think?
and the statement I wanted to you to talk to a little bit is that with these phases of the Grace Trail, there's no prescribed time limit for each step, isn't it? It's very personal. The Grace Trail is a very personal walk.
Absolutely. And it's very interesting because my brain has rewired. I ask these questions all the time. It's my default. You can ask the Grace Trail questions in 2 minutes. You can just run through them. If you really find yourself losing your footing, just stop. What am I grateful for? Okay, just like we did, really quick popcorn answers. I run 3-day retreats on the Grace Trail. I'm doing it in corporations, strategy sessions. Incorporating it, we spend hours on what's going right. That's a gratitude question. What do we release? Well, in corporate America, that's like, what's not working anymore, guys? You know, it is personal. You can make this as fast, as slow, as deep as you want. But I can tell you this, every time you walk it, it will be different. Am I answering that question?
Yes, and accept, and then we can move to the next question. But folks are saying the real world, and I have to accept that things won't go as planned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you,
And that you can't change people, and
no.
that's, people have to people are on their own walk. So yes.
Yes. Yep. True acceptance is I lovingly accept the notion that things are unfolding exactly as they are meant to unfold. That is true acceptance. And it's very hard right now to accept what's going on with a lot of parts of the world.
That's right. Love it. All right. So yes.
Okay, so here we are. We have a very disheveled looking gentleman on the left and a woman in her PJs looking a little befuddled on the right. And he looks at her and he says, how long has that been there? That's the elephant in the living room, and that's the whole thing about acknowledgement. We all spend so much of our time looking away from what's painful. Whether it's whatever. I mean, the liquor sales during this time and alcohol and pot, and it's like, really? What do we not want to see, guys? How long has that been there? Challenge. So here we are. The challenge of your choice allows you to direct your energy to what matters most. This challenge, what is my next challenge, is not your next to-do item. It is, how do I challenge myself just in this moment to move in the direction of my choice? Again, if you're on the Grace Trail today, that's the stones you'd see. And I have a story, Karen. I call this the boots on the trail. Now, I'm doing this by request. It's when I guess it was back in probably 2013 when I was even considering writing a book. I was in the middle of writing a short story about the Grace Trail. And it was about a survivor. And it was a woman who made it through. And I never said what she made it through because I was trying to make it open for everyone to see themselves as resilient and a survivor. And so she returns home after she's been through it, and she starts walking the Grace Trail. She puts on her boots, ties her boots on, she starts walking. They don't feel right. The new normal felt like 2 left feet. Anyway, it's a beautiful, small little story. And she gets to the point to embrace the possibilities. And she said, I've had enough with these boots. She says, I'm taking them off. They don't fit. She throws them on the side of the trail, right at the spot where she walks down to see the beautiful sunrise and ask, what can I embrace as possible in my precious life? These boots were at that spot on the Grace Trail that I wrote about. So I'm walking the Grace Trail with two friends. And I'm the queen of self-doubt. I was full of self-doubt. I'm like, who am I to write a short story? Who am I to think I'll write a book? Who will ever care about any of this stuff? I mean, I don't know about you, but I have a very busy, noisy head often. And so we get to this point on the trail where in my story, this survivor had taken her boots off and said, enough. She went down to the beach. And so I said to my friend Kevin, I said, Kevin, whose boots are those? He's like, I don't know. They've been there for 2 days. I go, who leaves their boots on the trail? And who leaves them in that spot? He said, I have no idea. And I took that as a gift. I took that as a message. It was like, Anne, put on your metaphorical big girl boots. Get back on the trail and finish the story and start your book.
Mhm.
Yep. Challenge. Stop and ask yourself, what is my next challenge? What is
So
the challenge?
maybe, yeah, can we move to the next phase, and then what we can do is capture the questions, open it up to general questions.
Absolutely. So let me move a little faster because I know we are a little over here. So challenge, that's the question. This brings us to our last step, embrace the possibilities. This is where you get to invite your imagination out for a walk and embrace the possibilities in your life. If you were on the trail today, that's what you would see. Someone left a beautiful rock, which I think looks about embracing the possibilities. Imagine, this is where you get to imagine. And it's not about, what's our next step? What's our next task? This is like, lift your head up, folks. Look at that beautiful horizon and ask yourself, what can I embrace as possible in my work? I love this question. It's my favorite question. And we could spend hours on this. This is where aspirations are born. When you ask that question, what can I embrace as possible? This is where your dreams live, your aspirations live. Aspirations breathe hope into fear and optimism into pessimism. This is a really important step on the Grace Trail because this is where you will breathe hope and life and love into your aspirations of what's possible. The Grace Trail is where you get to hang your hope out on the horizon and walk towards it every day.
I love that.
Yes, I do too. I should probably let you breathe that in. Hang your hope on the horizon and walk towards it every day. That's resilience, folks. Change your direction just a bit and walk towards what you hope to happen.
Well, Anne, can I ask you a couple questions? We have
Go for it.
10, 15 minutes, and I'd like to, if we can stop here,
Yep, we can do
ask folks to, if they have any questions or comments if they'd like to ask at this moment, just open it up on whether it's any of the phases. It doesn't have to be on this last one.
Nope. And what I'll do is I'll go over a couple of the slides at the end, right? Give me 1 minute and that'll be a great close.
Absolutely.
Ann and Karen, we have one question. Lynn would like to know, do we accept without letting others know that they have affected us? She says she's sure the answer is yes, but that's an area she struggles in.
So I want to be clear on the question. Do we accept, what was the question again? Without letting others know?
Sure. So do we accept without letting others know that they have affected us?
I think that's really personal to each situation. I think that if I think about in my life right now, there are things that I am accepting, and I'm really not sharing it with other people. I'm choosing to just move right along. And then there are other things that I'm working on accepting, and I want to do that with other people. I want to invite them into the conversation. So does that answer your question? There's no rule. There is no rule. It depends on what your intention is and what outcome you want. Do you agree, Karen?
Yeah, that was a great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. I hope I answered it.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, Lynn says thank you in the chat box, so I would go ahead and say yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, we also had a question about whether or not we think release is harder when we're in a virtual space like this. What are your thoughts on that, Anne?
Is release harder in a virtual space? That's an interesting question. Meaning we're isolated and at home and things like that? Is that, or, yeah. It's different. See, that's a great way to reframe. Release is about reframing. We have to now put a whole new frame on our life. It's not the same frame as when you were all at work and you were all doing the old stuff. It's going to be a long time to get back to that, if ever. So release is different in our new space. My question is, I would ask you, what do you need to learn? How is what you're letting go of, how is it an opportunity for you to grow? How is it an opportunity for you to learn? That's how I'm trying to frame a lot of the things that I need to release. How is this making room for opportunities to show up? Does that make sense?
I think that's really helpful, Anne. We're having a few folks saying that release is particularly the hardest step on the trail for them. And so to understand what are some different ways to dig into that topic.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Today, that's the hardest question on the trail for you. It's very interesting. If you make a commitment and walk the Grace Trail pretty much as a habit, whether you're, alone, journaling, meditating, exercising, do it during yoga, driving somewhere with your teams, it's amazing the levels that will be skimmed off. You'll get to new things. And as you actually release, reframe, refocus, that's what release is about. It'll start to shift and you'll move into the other questions and they change each other. The questions all affect each other. It's, there's a magic to this process, and I hear it from people every day. So for those of you who feel like release right now is the hardest, I guess I'd say write down what you want to release. Write down and then look at what is actually in your control to let go of. Those things you can't let go of, how can you reframe them? How can you look at it with fresh perspectives? Does that answer the question, Larissa?
I think so. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great question.
Yeah, it is a great question.
And we have another request to kind of expound on what we touched on earlier about letting somebody know when they've affected us. Claudia would like to know, should we acknowledge when some people hurt your feelings?
Well, I think it depends on what you want the outcome to be. If people hurt me enough, I can walk away. That's fine. I don't even want to engage again with them. If people hurt my feelings and I want to stay in relationship, then yeah, I'm going to share that and share that in a way that keeps the conversation open. And I'm also I would encourage you to look at what the impact could be from sharing, because sometimes by sharing your feelings and the impact people have had on you, they may decide, to try something new or even walk. It's a real personal decision, because the impact of sharing how you feel, which I always think is the best way to go. Believe me, I'm a real talker. And even if it's a difficult conversation, but maybe you should maybe it would help for you to walk the grace trail before you had that conversation and ask yourself the 5 questions pertaining exactly to the situation and the person that hurt you. What am I grateful for about this situation? What am I grateful for with this person? With this specific situation where I was hurt, what can I let go of? If you walk the grace trail and ask those 5 questions before the difficult conversation, if you decide to have that, you may walk in with a different energy and a different perspective.
Fresh
Thank you.
eyes. I love that. Great question.
Yeah, great question.
I have a bit of a personal question / framework. So Karen actually brought some of your Grace Trail work to an LGH staff retreat just a couple of years ago. So the team has walked the Grace Trail, and I think we all really valued that experience. And for me personally, I was newly pregnant and trying to figure out what my life would look like. And it was just really beautiful to take time to ask some of these questions and to just spend some time looking inward. One of the things that Karen shared, and you've reiterated here, is really the Grace Trail, I think, should be your own. And not only do you spend potentially different times at each step, but you can walk it in different orders if needed.
Absolutely.
And so I'd like to have you expand on that a little bit of responding to what's calling to you most on the trail, and not necessarily always just spelling out grace in order, but going where you're called to go.
Right. I mean, I think, Larissa, you just said it beautifully. You'll know what question needs to be asked. These questions are universal time-tested wisdom. I didn't make up gratitude, didn't make up release. Somehow they were given to me in this order. But you will find, as you use this, certain questions are being called for you. I love to say, Grace Trail is where your answers are waiting for you to arrive. You ask the question, and you can start anywhere in the Grace Trail. You can do them backwards if you want. But the important thing is that you are bringing inquiry into your life so that you are a learner with an open heart and an open mind to possibly hearing new perspectives, new information that you may not even want to hear. So what happens to me is the questions just come, and I'll say, man, what do you need to accept today, Ann? You know, they just are in my toolkit to grab when I need them, and I'll know what question is calling out to me. Does that work, Larissa?
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love that, Ann. I do love that statement. Answers are waiting for you to arrive.
I know. And they are, Karen, because really, if you ask the question so many times, I'm surprised by the answer. And I'm like, well, why didn't I think of that? Well, I had to ask the question, you know? Yeah, it's fascinating. So
Mindfulness practice too. I mean, for us to stop the swirl, because I think many of us are at home right now, sitting in school, constant swirl and that constant go, 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 next meeting, that we're not giving ourselves a chance to rewash, reset, and be able to move forward with more intention. So I love that.
Well, the nice thing, if you, in between phone calls, in between Zoom meetings, ask the questions really quickly. You know, not only what am I grateful for, what did I do right?
Did Ann freeze, or is that me?
No, I believe that's Ann.
All right. So we'll wait for Ann to unfreeze, but in the meantime, are there additional questions?
I think there's a nice statement that John just shared, just sort of reminding us not to forget that there are also people in and around your life who are motivated and willing to help, and who would welcome being asked to join you in your trail. So reminding us that although we feel isolated, we're not as isolated as we may feel.
Yeah, and thank you, John, for reminding us of that, because I think sometimes when we're in struggle, we have a tendency to go in, and we have a tendency to not reach out for help. So I think it's a wonderful idea to take someone else on the Grace Trail with you, or if you've walked the Grace Trail, to be able to sit with them later and say, I walked the Grace Trail and this is what I discovered, and to be able to have those conversations with folks. And one of Brene Brown's quotes that I love is, share with those who deserve the right to hear your story. Because I think the Grace Trail can be very personal. So share it with those who will hold you in the way that you need to be held at that moment, in confidence and love and hope. I love that.
Yeah, Karen, so many people are saying that this is just a really timely workshop, and it has tied nicely into some of our previous sessions. Michelle commented, and she said she just made a commitment today to pause, learn, and reflect. So that speaks to kind of the timing.
Okay, and thank you. And I think it is timely, considering all that's going on in the world. I think the Grace Trail works in the workplace. It works if you're in grief. There's lots of many ways that you can use on the Grace Trail. And I love the idea, someone posted in the chat box, of us creating one in an ending at Ted's tree. What a wonderful tribute that would be. So I want to thank, if Anne was here, if she wasn't frozen or in the, who knows where she is, probably trying to get in, she would be thanking all of you for joining us in this conversation. So I want to thank you for walking the Grace Trail with us today. Oh, and here's Anne, to perfect timing. We have maybe, Anne, can you hear us? Can you take yourself off mute? Maybe not. Maybe I think, yeah, you're back. So do you have maybe just 1 minute to do a wrap up? Your slides aren't there, but if you can verbally do a wrap up, and then we'll.
I will. I had a blackout. My whole house went out and internet went down, and so I had to call back in again. See, it's a resiliency method. I'm thrilled, grateful I'm back, and then I can laugh, because we have to reframe this. We're all doing the best we can, and then the lights go out. And I welcome you on the Grace Trail. I hope to see more of all of you. I'd love to hear your stories about Grace Trails. Like I said, they're going all over the world, and in all different forms. You'd be so surprised. And I hope to get a YouTube channel up soon to share the stories. But I want to hear your stories. I'd love Greater Hartford to have their own Grace Trail someday. And I'm very excited to be here, and with a process that's absolutely versatile, from one person to 20,000, to walking a trail, to sitting alone in your home, to corporate, churches, recovery centers, senior centers, you name it. They're walking Grace Trail, and I'm glad Greater Hartford's on the trail with me today. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day, and I hope to play more with Greater Hartford. So this is to you, all of you. Thank you, and I want to end on time.
So thank you, Anne. So let's give Anne, I always like the jazz hands, because it's a wonderful visual. Jazz hands, thank you for Anne. Love it. Thank you. And we'll hear more about the Grace Trail, I'm sure, in the future. So thank you, Anne, for your overview of the Grace Trail, and thank all of you for all your heartfelt comments in the chat box and speaking out loud. I love it.
Yeah.
So I'll hand it over.
I want to jump in. So, Anne, thank you for diving immediately into acceptance, that we can't control power in our house sometimes, and then diving right into release of just letting that go. I know I personally am going to be sitting in the space of gratitude for a while, just gratitude for everyone sharing their own stories and their own being vulnerable with us. Thank you for sharing all of your comments in the chat box today. And I think I may head outside to go do a little Grace Trail walk of my own around the pond outside our office. So I encourage you all to get outside to do that as well. Thank you for your questions. We are recording this session, and we'll distribute the slides to everyone soon. And as always, we want to thank our visionary sponsors for their generous support in making this series possible. Thank you for your investment in community leadership, and we can't do this work without you. Thank you all for joining us today and your involvement in the Leading in the New Now series. This was our 5th workshop in the series. We're going to pause for a moment and work to plan what the next set of virtual workshops will look like. So to do so, we really want your feedback. You'll be getting a survey from us soon, within the next few minutes or so. So please let us know what topics you'd like us to cover in future webinar series. We are your leadership organization, so your feedback helps to shape our offerings. We want to remind everyone too that LGH is able to offer customized virtual workshops for you and your team through our consulting and training arm, which is led by the one and only Karen Senteio. In fact, some of our colleagues today are busy facilitating workshops for 2 different organizations. So we are always busy, but ready and willing to do this work. So to learn more about what trainings we offer, please do reach out to Karen. And then in case you missed it, yesterday we hosted a virtual farewell event for Ted Carroll to celebrate his 35 years as president of Leadership Greater Hartford. By now, the last time we checked, more than 1,500 people have tuned in to view our celebration, which is crazy. And I know that after Anne's presentation today, I'm already feeling more grounded and positive this afternoon. But if you're looking for an additional boost of optimism, hope, and love, the live stream recording is up on our Facebook page, and I encourage you to watch it anytime. Cara just shared the link in our chat box. So again, thank you all today. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the afternoon. And please do give us some feedback. Let us know how we can serve you best in the virtual world soon.